Hello guys, so I was looking for some web framework in Go and I found this framework called Fiber, which is an Express inspired web framework built on fast HTTP. So what Express inspired would mean here is that if you've used Express before or a similar kind of framework before, you would have no problem in migrating to using Fiber for building web application in Golang. And as much as I look at the examples given on this page, I could see that it's indeed very similar to indeed very similar to Express. So I decided to build up a small project, a simple REST API to see how easy could it be for me, for someone who built a lot on Node.js but haven't got a lot of grip on Golang. So let's get started. So over here, I'm using this IDE called Golang. You could use VS Code, but I found VS Code to be a bit buggy. Although over here, I'm using a free version of Golang here. So I hope the VS Code support does get better with time on Golang. So just create this project. And this project has been created. In case you're using VS Code, you'll have to say go mod init, and then you'll have to write the name of the project to initialize your Golang project. Let us create an entry point for our application that will be server.go. We're going to name this package main because we want to run this, and it wouldn't run a non-main package. So let's write function main. Before this function could even be written, let us get the package, our fiber package. We're going to go back here and where's this is it. We're going to copy this, we'll come back here, we're going to paste this, and it will get our Go fiber. It did end up getting our Go fiber. So now let us initialize an app as we would do with Express. We're going to say here fiber.new, and this would, and the autocomplete is working. Nice to see that. Let us set up a simple route to see if how to set up routes, and then we'll get to building a REST API. So app.get, the same way we would specify params colon and param name, and over here the callback is a fiber context that has all the information of the request and response parameter you would have in your Express, right? So it's an interface returns an error. I'm going to return similar to your Express. Now in Express you would say res.send. Over here you have send string that accepts a one argument that's a string. So we're going to return hello with a capital H and no space. And in Express you would have got this param name by writing request.param.name. Over here you'll have something very similar. Inside the context object, as I told you, it has all the information. You have this function called params, and as you can see, it accepts a couple of arguments, the main one being a key. Key specifies the name of the param you want to get. Over here it's name. Now what we're going to do here is start it, and we're going to listen it on a port. So app.listen, it accepts an address string. Address string is format of colon and port number. Now let us run this. So we're going to say run and allow access. So as you can see, it is giving me my CPU information here, the process information, and let us go on localhost 3000 and write my name, and it should say hello Nitin. So it's working. Now let us set up MongoDB. Let us see how MongoDB packages are in Go. So we say MongoDB Golang, and it should give us the package name here. This is it. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to terminal. We'll get this package. I didn't copy it or what? Copy, and yes, that is it. Paste it here, and it will get our MongoDB driver. By the time it gets a MongoDB driver, let us set up some code structure here. I'll have it a global folder where I'll set up my db.go file, which will have all the information. I already have MongoDB installed, so I'm not going to go through the process of installing MongoDB. db.go, Over here, what I'll do is to set up a route to use, sorry, I'll set up our MongoDB function here so that uh, when this package is called, the MongoDB the MongoDB could get connected, our application could connect to MongoDB, and this context is available everywhere. So package global, what we'll do in a C, just have one function that'll say connect to Mongo, right? We have used a function called mongo.newClient. That'll create a client for us. Option dot client, right? It's all Mongo package here. Now we're gonna apply the URI over here. You apply the URI for your Mongo server. I'll run it locally, so I'll say Mongo localhost, and the default port is 27017. If we get an error, we're gonna log this out. If error does not equals to nil, log dot matter error. Else, we'll take the context. We're gonna say context with timeout to connect to our MongoDB instance. Context to with timeout, and the context we're gonna apply is context.background, which is an empty nil context, and we're gonna skip for time of 10 seconds. Time dot second. Okay, time is a capital small t, so that's why I prefer Golang. I mean, I should know all this, but I'm pretty much new still. So client dot connect with this context. Okay, why is it unresolved reference client? Okay, I just initialize it here. Or this should do it, and so is here, right? So what we're going to see is we're going to print if we have connected. So we're going to print ln. We're going to say connected to MongoDB. Now to make this DB available everywhere, let us create a variable that we're going to access through the package, and it's going to be of type mongo.database. I'm going to name my database as maybe Go Fiber tutorial. DB equals to client.database. I'm going to give the name as Go Fiber tutorial. It's a capital D. Now you want to connect to Mongo, but what we want to say is that whenever someone accesses this variable right here, this function should automatically run, right? So there's something called init functions in Go. So whenever you call a package, anything in a package in Go, this init function would run first. So we're going to say connect to Mongo. And what this will do is whenever you access this variable here inside a global.db, when you will access global.db, what it would do is the init function would first get run and it would get connected to your Mongo instance. Let me quickly download the Robo3T or Compass here so that we could see if data is getting logged or not. So I've downloaded Compass here so that any changes that we make to a MongoDB we can see that interactively here rather than using the CLI. So let us quickly set up a directory that will hold our model files for MongoDB, and we're going to say entity. So we're going to specify an entity.todo file that is todo.go, and it is going to just simply be a struct that will return type todo struct, and let us just have simply two fields, title of type string. I'm going to marshal it to JSON. I'm going to say title. Similarly, we'll have one more field, description string, and it is going to be JSON description. Let us have a service folder that we're going to use this particular to do as model, and that service folder would do CRUD operations on it. We're going to have one more folder called services. So we'll have just one Go file here that is to do service.go, right? So we'll have a couple of functions here. Function to do create, right? Let us just simply write functions here. To do create, to do update, to do get, to do delete, and to do find all. And to do find all, right? So what we're going to do here is go back to our server.js file. We're going to set up those routes, and those routes will call these functions, and these functions would use the entity that we made here to create, read, update, delete, or get all the entities present are in MongoDB, but MongoDB database. So let us go back to our server.go, and we'll start off by first creating, so that we could see if some entry is going in our uh, MongoDB database. So we'll say post to do, and as I told you, it takes a fiber context. So it is going to be C fiber dot context, interface returns an error. So let us get that to do, entity dot to do, right? Autocomplete is working, great. And we're going to say error. And as in Express, you would have used something called body parser that would get you JSON structure from your body. Similarly, here you'll have body parser. And what's going to do is we want to change this body parser to use a to-do file to whatever data is coming. We're going to expect that it is in the same format of to-do. I'm going to use this to-do to unmarshal it into to-do. So we're going to say if error does not equals to nil, maybe we want to return us. It's similar to send status in Express, c.status, and you have all those status inside your fiber. So status.bat gateway, great. JSON, and we have something called fiber.map through which we could return a JSON. I'm going to say error, and our error would be error.error interface that would return our error message. Else, what we're going to do here is we're gonna say to do equals to services, and we'll create this function now to do create, and it's going to accept a to do. Now we'll go back to our services function, and we're going to say that it accepts a to do. Now this is very hard coded stuff, but we are just trying out Golang here now. To do, and let's have an output type of to do because we are expecting it at to do, and that would be entity.to-do. Let us also output out an error. In case an error occurs, we're also going to say that it return a tuple that has a type error as well. So we're going to go back to server and we're going to say to do error, right? We're going to say this, and let us go back to service and return all this stuff. Response error. Now we had our DB package global.db that is responsible to connecting to our database. So we can say we're going to use a collection called to do there. It would create that collection as it happens in MongoDB. And there's a very simple function in there that says insert one. And we have to give it a context. We're going to give it an empty context, counting the background. And we are expecting a to do, and we're not written any check. Great, but never mind. If error does not equals to nil, what we're going to say is we're going to log back log.pattern error. Also, we're going to return an empty to do with an error. entity dot to do, an empty entity dot to do with the error. Else we're gonna print whatever response we got to check if this was inserted correctly. Res dot inserted id. Okay, this is the Mongo ID, but okay, I didn't really initialize it here. That is not working. Why it the autocomplete hasn't started working yet. And we're gonna return a to do which we have inserted here and an error which in case would be nil. Right? We're gonna go back here and we're going to change this to return this return c.status, and it would be fiber.status. Okay, that is 200, and we're going to return this JSON to do. Right, as you can see, we're getting an error here. That is because we have redeclared it, and let's see why we are getting error here. Okay, it says entity.todo, but it should be entity.todo. So both the errors have now disappeared. And why is this status coming? C.status unresolved reference is status. Let me check the documentation for it. This is Golang. Status. Oh, it's a capital S. Sorry, my bad. We have written a small s here. C.status. So now just run this using Postman. Let's see if this is working. I'm going to open Postman here. We want to say localhost 3000, and this is going to be to do this one. We're going to say body. We're going to raw JSON structure, and title would be hello, and we'll also have a description that says again hello. Now let's see if this is working. Before this is working, we need to run this file and just run it from here. This key must be MongoDB or MongoDB plus serve. Let us go back to db.go here, and we've written Mongo here, but it should be MongoDB. Let's rerun this. So as you can see, it's running. Let us just say to do. Okay, sorry, it's a post method, not a get method. We're gonna say send, and it did create. Let us see in our MongoDB compass here. So you can see go fiber tutorial to do, and it's the same thing, hello, and again hello. Now let us set up more routes. Now that our create route is working, let us set up our both find all route and our get route so that we could read data as well. So to set up, now I'm trying to make the function signature same here, but I'm pretty much expecting the to do get and to do delete to have the same structure, and to do update, find all, and create to have kind of the same structure. So start with to do get, and as much you would have expected it, it is going to return an entity to do and an error. It will expect you a task ID, which is a Mongo ID, which would be a type string here. Now we have to convert this string to our MongoDB object ID. So let us first create a to do here. Entity to do. I should have passed reference rather. So object ID error, and we'll have to convert it from using something called primitive.object ID We're gonna pass object ID from hex actually. So it's an hexadecimal string. This object, this task ID, Mongo ID, and what we're gonna say, we're gonna pass that string to task ID, right? The next thing we want to do is to check if there is any error. We're doing nothing right now for errors, rather than just returning them. So we're gonna say log dot fatal error. I'm gonna say return to do and an error. Also, we want to use this object ID now. So we can say error with this something called, we're going to use global or DB package. Collection would be to do. And we're going to say something find one, as you might have known. Or maybe not find one, maybe find. But find one would return you one object, and that is what we want to do with our get method here. And we're going to return a context here. It takes a context, maybe this time context dot background, and bson, because we want to search through our object ID here, bson dot map, and we're going to say our ID should be equal to our object ID we have declared above, and we're going to decode this information. We expect to get a to do, otherwise we'll get an error inside this to do. Okay, the collection would be a capital C here, and that's why we got that error in decode. Now if error does not equals to nil, log dot fatal this error, and we're going to return an empty to do, maybe this to do above declared there, and an error. In case we did end up getting a to do, return to do and nil there, right? Now we're going to go back to our server.js file and set up this method. So let me copy app.get. Okay, I've deleted that app.get, and let me copy it from here. Maybe I could copy this thing from here, at least, if not the entire thing, right? So this should be to do, and we are saying that we want to do this thing by an ID. So we're going to say ID equals to, we get, as I told you, we get the parameters, URL parameters using the function called cts dot, in our case c dot params, and this would be ID. This is such a string and our key, and the key name is ID, and we're going to say to do, or we get an error, and we're going to say services dot to do get ID. If we get an error, we are simply going to say, okay, again I just messed this thing up. If error log dot fatal this error and return our ctx dot status bad gateway, maybe this we could copy it from here. I'm going to return this as well, and we want to return it here as well, right? In case this is this to do, in case we get a to do, we are going to say return c dot status fiber dot status okay, and a JSON that specifies that to do. Why are we getting this error? If error, and as you can see, I used a JavaScript here. If error does not equals to none. So let us rerun this and see if this route is working or not. And I forgot to copy that Mongo's ID. Let me open Compass here and get that Mongo ID first. I'm going to copy this. We are going to open Postman and we're going to say to do, and we are going to get this. And as you can see, it did end up getting a hello and again hello. Let me change this data to be sure that we're getting this. Here we're going to say update, and we're going to rerun this again hello. So our create route is working, our get route is working, and now let us work on getting up our find all route. Now this should be very similar to using to do.get. So now to do.find all I should write to do.find rather than to do.find all. Maybe find all is a better example. We're just gonna write find all. Maybe find all would return all find, but let's just do this. Maybe we are returning an array of to-dos. What to-dos, that is entity dot to do, and we're going to say a cursor because we are going to get a cursor to using our find all, the find methods in our collection of MongoDB, and that would be global.db. We use a collection called to do here, and we are going to find every document. So we say context dot background, an empty context, bson dot t, and what this would do is that it would return you a cursor to the data present inside to do, right? So what we want to do here is error equals to cursor dot all, and we're gonna have another background to do's, and if this gives us an error, maybe we're gonna log that and return it does not equals to nil. Error. If we get an error, what we are doing right now is just returning an empty array of to do and that error, and because that's an empty to do, maybe I could have written to do's here. I've declared above to do's. Else what we want to do is just simply return to do's and nil here, right? So maybe just simply have find all structure here. We could have find grade to take accepting it maybe more filter objects, but we'll do that later on. Server.go, maybe just copy all this stuff here. This is app.get to do. This is to do dot find all. This method does not exist here now. It's on to do. Maybe we'll rerun this. As you can see, it's running now. So we're gonna say to do. As you can see, it did end up returning us. Let us create more to dos here. I'm gonna duplicate this tab. Say post. The body might be still there. Again, hello. Send. Again, hello 3. Send. Maybe hello 2. Send. And now let us get all to dos. So as you can see, we did end up creating all these routes now. So that we can see now most of our routes are working. In the next video, we'll make other routes to work. I think only 2 routes might have been left by now. That is to do delete and to do update, and we'll try to group all these similar routes, all these routes that belong to do in a single group. And also we'll implement some kind of an authentication like a JWT or something, so that no one can access our route except the one with proper credentials. So now on to the next video.